This week from DC Comics, Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong, written by Brian Buccelato, art by Christian Doucet and Tom Derenick. DC has come out with a lot of innovative, fan-favorite Elseworlds comics over the last couple years. You could cynically call these fan service series. Some of the major highlights for me being Deceased, DC vs. Vampires, Dark Knights of Steel. And I think it was the success of titles like these that finally gave DC the confidence to greenlight what is objectively the coolest Versus title of all time. Like, just looking at this, my childhood nostalgia meter is at a dangerous high. But is the series living up to the collective hype? Let's see where we stand with issue number 4. First, I just want to say that I really like where this story begins, and it was released as a free preview for like a couple months, so it isn't really a huge spoiler, and I want to mention it because it's what hooked me beyond the big spectacle title. Our story starts on the day that Superman is finally going to propose to Lois Lane, which means time in which the world will be without the watchful eyes and ears of its Superman. Everything about this setup is handled as thoughtfully as you'd want it to be, which almost feels like too sacred a place to start the big monkey versus big lizard versus tights and cape people story. Which is what hooked me as a reader, proof right off the bat that this isn't going to be just a simplistic brawl. That there are emotional stakes guiding the plot, and that there are intelligent, passionate motivations behind each beloved character and their inclusion. Which extends to Godzilla and Kong as well. But this should come as no surprise with a writer like Brian Buccelato, who gave us the DC and Justice comics, as well as some of the early volumes of the split Batman Detective Comics title. This series so far has everything you would want from a huge Elseworlds ensemble piece. A diverse group of villains who provide humor as well as classic comic book villainy, specific, exciting action sequences from your favorite Justice League member, and multiple kaiju appearances and battles aside from the big two. Also, Godzilla is appropriately massive, which isn't always the case, and it's always nice to see. Now it's time for us to dive more into the issue, so spoilers ahead. This issue starts dramatically with Bruce really going through it as he insists that Superman is still alive despite all evidence to the contrary. In the last issue, Superman took the full brunt of Godzilla's iconic blue beam as he tried to shield Billy Batson, aka Shazam, like the true selfless hero we know him to be. And now we see him helplessly floating in a cryogenic pod, much like Goku on Namek. We then cut to Skull Island, where we see Supergirl in a badass stare down with King Kong. And Green Arrow is also there. Don't worry, he gets a really cool fight scene. It seems like we're setting up for Kong to be on the side of the heroes, which isn't my favorite trope, but I get it, it's tried and true. This issue also dives further into the mystery of what exactly is controlling these creatures. We're pretty sure it's Toyman, but is it? And Lex seems to be plotting something? Or are they just being controlled naturally? There's talk of this pulse or this signal that they're following. I like all the branching investigations, and even Lois is now in on the detective work. But the highlight of this issue has to be the ending, where our heroes come to the aid of Atlantis, where Aquaman struggles to defend his kingdom from multiple kaiju. It's a really awesome set piece, and the artwork feels very quintessentially DC. We haven't reached the climax yet, but this series continues to deliver action-packed moments that elevate it to a truly iconic Justice League event. I love that it's canon now that Godzilla would fuck up Superman. Green Arrow's always going through some bullshit. It's like I want to say something more eloquent, but all I can think of is, fuck yeah! What are some moments that you would like to see from this series? Like, what comes to mind when you hear Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. King Kong? Also, I'd love for you to share what some of your favorite Godzilla films are. I'm partial to Godzilla vs. Ebirah. Big crab.